So I want to ask a question of all of you really fast. Who here plays video games? Raise your hand.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot. More than you were expecting? Less than you were expecting?
A couple weeks ago, I would have said more than I was expecting, but the study just came out and said 70% of Americans play 1 hour of video games every single week.
Which, per this room, it actually might be more than 70%, as it turns out. Asha, you took on this job a few months ago. You were not historically a gamer. What was the first game you ever played on an Xbox?
Oh gosh. Well, the first game I ever played that in memory, I'm not a gamer, but kind of casually grew up with Star Fox and hockey and Sonic, and then I think the first game I played on an Xbox was Halo.
It was on Halo. It was Halo.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some Halo fans out here. Over the last few years, Xbox's future has never been more in question. You just had your first showcase as CEO. How do you feel?
Oh, it was incredible. So Showcase is our annual game show where we show off the trailers and the lineups that come. We had more than 25 creators that showed up to do it. And honestly, it's one thing to watch it, it's one thing to hear about it, but it's another thing to feel it. These are our fans that have committed 25 years to Xbox. And to see their excitement and to feel the energy for the next 25 years was pretty special.
What did you want that showcase to telegraph about Xbox's future?
When I took the role about 100 days ago, I talked about my first 100 days was about listening and learning and really understanding what makes Xbox Xbox. And so I made 3 commitments along the way. I wanted to preserve great games. I wanted to be about the return of Xbox, and I wanted to talk about the future of play. And so it was only fitting that my first showcase, we got to really do that, and we had a lot of great games. We had the return of Xbox with the reintroduction of 2 new exclusives, as well as a new special edition 25th anniversary console. And it was just such a wonderful environment to bring everybody together.
Now, one thing about your tenure is that you have killed a lot of things fast. The This Is an Xbox campaign, Copilot, it seems like the mobile store might be in flux. What's the pattern?
Look, I think that clarity is kindness. And so as I'm learning, I'm trying to be decisive about the things that we need to invest in, the things we need to prioritize, and the things that don't represent our brand. And we're doing that as fast as we can. There's still seams in that as we go, but it's starting to really create a direction for the team to understand the principles in which we stand for, how we make decisions, to really have all of them go follow that same path.
Now, this wasn't something you killed, but it was a cut. You did drop prices on Game Pass, longtime Xbox pillar. What went into that decision?
Look, I think Game Pass is at the heart of gaming. It's the way that players can access a lot of catalogs, day one content, great experiences with us. And we had raised the prices 50% last year. And we were on the path to seeing a decay in subscribers. And so it had just simply become too unaffordable. And so we adjusted the price for players and the offering as we went through with that. And we're starting to see a return to growth. We're starting to see more subscribers. We're starting to see, more importantly, better retention. And we've got more work to do. So we'll be doing more this summer in order to create more flexible offerings to meet all the types of players that we have, and we'll continue to iterate on that.
Now, who here considers themselves an Xbox fan? Raise your hand. Okay, so there's some very enthusiastic hands out there. You, like me, maybe have been on Xbox Reddit recently then, where people are saying things like, when do we put up the statue of Asha?
Oh, gosh.
There's definitely a sense you've turned the narrative around on Xbox. But what has truly changed in these first few months, and what still needs to evolve?
Look, I think that I've had the opportunity to take a look at everything with fresh eyes, and the team is putting a lot of wins on the board, starting with our players. We have one of our operating principles is that we earn every single player, and so we've shipped more in the last few months on our platform than we have in the last year, we've been able to see a return to growth on Game Pass. We had some great games. Forza was absolutely crushing it. And I think that momentum is really contagious. And we're starting to really go back to some of the core principles that made Xbox great. At the same time, we know that the industry at large is going through a lot of headwinds. It pulled a lot of demand forward during COVID, and it hasn't really been able to reaccelerate. There's compression happening at almost every level of the stack, and there's a new generation that plays very differently than the core generation. And so we've had a great 100 days. We've begun to revive Xbox, and the next 100 days is about resetting Xbox.
To that end, the narrative has shifted, but the numbers are tough. Gaming revenue down, but hardware revenue down 33%. You've previously said you can't raise prices through the crisis, but you also have memory storage shortages to contend with, and they are driving up prices across the industry. How do you think about balancing that? And does that limit growth potential for consoles?
Yeah, look, it's going to, in all of these spaces, there are no silver bullets. We will have patience and we will execute in days, but expect that it will take a while to show up on the scoreboard. Look, on hardware, we are in a crisis right now. The entire industry is. There's a shortage of memory and storage, and the costs are exponential. They are usually at this point in the generation about 50% of the cost, and we're seeing they're up 2.75x. They're up 50% since I started. They're going to be up effectively 7.5x. And so, yes, pricing is a lever, of course, but we must think about other options as well. We must think about other ways to think about the cost construction of the console. We must think about how we create different plans so more people can participate in the console. We must think about partnerships that will allow us to have better distribution and reach. And we must think about the experiences that we're creating outside of that as well to reach new audiences.
What are some things you're considering that you would never imagined would be the case 5 years ago? Or that Xbox would have never imagined would be the case 5 years ago?
Hard to tell because I wasn't there, but I think that we will, continue to look at new business models, I think is what is needed for console rather than just the most premium high performance console in the world. I think we've reached a point where it will be hard to imagine that mass audiences can afford thousands of dollars to spend on a console generation. And so I think we will start to see radically different business models that we never expected start to come into orbit later this year.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about the business moment you're in is through the prism of something like Project Helix. It's expected to be a top-tier premium offering. There is definitely interest in it, but previously Xbox executives have recently said that it's going to be hard to meet demand. How do you sort of balance that?
Yeah, well, we're having a hard time now. There's more demand than there is supply for our Gen 9 console. And I suspect the same will be there with our Gen 10 console. I'm excited about it. It's a console that's also going to allow you to play your PC games. It's going to have backward compatibility. It's going to have leading-edge performance. But there's material work to do to make sure that it is available to the people that want to play. And so we're working on that.
To this end, you have warned about a coming crash in consumer electronics. What does that look like in gaming and beyond?
Look, I think it's pretty interesting because if you think back, gaming was really the proving ground for compute and AI. So it's pretty interesting that now 25 years later, with the AI infrastructure happening, that we are in this position. But I actually see it as great that every industry now gets to benefit from advances in computation. And so for us, I think that we have to think very differently about storage and memory going forward. We will have to apply new techniques so that we can compress that. We will have to empower customers to have very flexible storage offerings. We will have to empower new types of games so they can fit on device. And so there's going to be a lot of innovation. This will take years, not days, not weeks, but we'll go through it together with the community.
Now we're going to turn to the audience for questions soon. One thing I've been very interested in is the question of exclusivity. Previous Xbox leaders took exclusivity off the table. It seems like after Showcase, it's back on. Clockwork Revolution and Gears of War E-Day, both exclusives. What led to the pivot?
Look, I think that we are the number 2 publisher in the world, and when you do that, you want your games to be everywhere. You're stronger when the world plays with you. At the same time, we are increasingly becoming more of a platform, and it's hard to find examples of platforms out there that don't have exclusive services and content. And so this is a journey for us. Our business isn't particularly healthy, as you noticed, or as you noted, and so we're starting by introducing 1 to 2 signature exclusives. And as the business is healthy, we will look to try and do more.
Questions for Asha from the audience? Oh, we have a lot of hands. Okay, hello in the front here. Your name and who you're with. Oh, we have so many questions for you.
Hi, Kathy Hackle, CEO of Future Dynamics. I've got a question for you around world models and kind of the role that gaming plays. You've got, for example, Roblox introducing Roblox Reality, going into video world models. How is Xbox going to start to use the infrastructure of gaming to power the future of AI?
Yeah, great question. So just in terms of a priority set, for me, I'm very much focused on core before more. At the same time, kind of going back to what I said, AI has always been part of gaming, right? The GPU wasn't invented for researchers to train neural nets. It was invented for, better spaceships and dragons and better frame rates. And so in many ways, I think that gaming will continue to lead the way on a lot of this technology. Coming from the AI world before this, I a bit of a different point of view. I don't believe world models will replace AAA games. I believe that AI can certainly invent a new genre of games, but they're just going to be different. If you think about GitHub Copilot or Codex or Claude Code, you can maybe single shot a vampire survivor game because the parameters are pretty defined and understood. But when it comes to economies and matchmaking and social dynamics, this is a systems problem, not a content problem. And in my first 100 days, I've really come to appreciate the depth and the complexity of art. And so I think AI will be really important in production pipelines and prototyping and things like that. I think it will be really important for new forms of content that come up. But I don't necessarily see world models being the replacement for 50 to 80 hours of gameplay in a really complex universe that gets created in AAA.
A quick follow, AI slop in gaming, how do you keep it off your platform?
I think we just have to be really principled. I think there's this misnomers that the gaming industry hates AI. I actually believe that's absolutely not true. I think that they have demanded the industry to push computation forward. They've always been at the frontier. Real-time networking, online infrastructure. It's all started with gaming. And I think that because of that, they're just very protective of adding technology for technology's sake. We have to solve a problem. And so anything that we will do will be to solve a problem, to solve a developer problem, to solve a player problem, not to just paint it all over the experience.
Other questions for Asha? Oh man, we have so many hands.
Okay,
all right, we have a question right over here.
Ask him.
Hello, your name and who you're with.
I'm Asher and I'm with my dad. When you were a kid, what were you building or obsessed with, and did you see yourself being a CEO of a large company?
Great question, Asher. When I was a kid, honestly, I never obsessed on what I wanted to be when I grew up. I only obsessed on what I wanted to do, whether it was selling coupon books or putting on concerts so I could raise money, so I could have my lunch money, whether it was being the best at taking out the trash at the park that I worked at. I just tried to obsess on being great at what I was doing so I could earn the next job. I think it's really special to be the CEO of Xbox. It's beyond my wildest dreams.
Other questions? We have time for one more. Maybe we have time for one
Hey,
more.
Asha, Stephen Wolf-Pereira from Alpha Governance Group. I'm so curious, you spoke about makers over managers, and obviously the creator economy is so important. How do you view creators as a part of your strategy going forward?
Great question. I think they're incredibly important part of our strategy. I think that the way I think about it is we've got incredible studios that are in-house and they need to be our first customer so we can rapidly iterate. We've got an incredible platform of third-party developers. And the next generation of creators, I envision a world where Xbox is where the world plays and creates. Increasingly, we're seeing that players want to participate. And so we need to open up our platform and have the tools for, customization and extensions and all of those things, and maybe even in game creation as well, amateur game creation. So I think there's a ton of opportunity. If you look at kind of gaming akin to entertainment, the top 2 box office hits right now are from YouTubers. And so I think that this is a special space. I think the more types of creations will bring more types of players.
We actually have time for one more. Hand back there.
Hi, I'm Tarun Chandrasekhar, CPO Syndigo. So you have 50 million plus active devices running Xbox today with increasingly better silicon, right? A lot of the framework we've had so far is about how does AI get into gaming. But my question is, how does Xbox get into AI? You have edge computing, you have Microsoft building the largest AI infrastructure. And if I was to expand the idea of gaming, this is the biggest time we're thinking where, when we were 30 years ago, we were all building PCs and starting to write our own code and writing our own learning programming. It's that world today when it comes to local inferences, right? I can tell you a number of us here have probably gone and built a new RTX 5090 box, not to game, but to actually run a local Gemma 14 billion parameter. Are there any plans to expand the scope of what you would call entertainment or growing gaming to actually allow for that next generation of AI development that becomes more and more edge compute?
Yeah, so great question. This is definitely not our Allbirds moment where we're going to turn Xbox.ai. Look, that said, I think you could certainly locally inference today with the GPUs on an Xbox, and developers can do that if they so choose. I think my focus right now has to be on winning the core of gaming, and if that so means that game developers and gamers want to locally inference, we'll make that available. That hasn't been the top ask, especially with a number of other devices that are on the market, a number of the other innovation that Microsoft is making available. But we are, we're part of Microsoft, and so should that need arise, we'll take a look at it.
As we wrap up this conversation, I should tell you, as I was preparing for this interview, I talked a lot to my friend Ryan, who's a very serious gamer, owns 6 Xboxes. And he pointed out to me, 25th anniversary, coming up in November, and gaming is so identity-driven.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean to be, as opposed to a PlayStation player or a Nintendo gamer, what does it mean to be an Xbox gamer today?
Look, I'm still getting to know our community. It's vast and it's really special. But the thing that I've really come to appreciate about Xbox in my first 100 days is it's always been a bit different. Like the players and the teams have always dared to do something no one else did. They put an Ethernet on the Xbox before anyone believed in online gaming. We launched Xbox Live before people understood social. And they are really rooting for each other and have come to the table to help each other through good times and hard times. And I think that's incredible and unbeatable.
Asha, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.